Hello everyone, welcome to the energy update for November 2023. I'm Lee, I'm an intuitive, and every month I take the pulse on what might show up for us energetically. Just a few of the themes this month are: how are you recovering from the events of this past month? Trust and surrender on a personal and a political scale. And what timeline are you in right now? Are you in the future or are you in the now? I'll elaborate on these and more in just a moment. Hi everyone, welcome to the November 2023 energy update, and we are just beginning our initiation course right now. It's my annual channeled mystery school, so I'll share more about that at the end of this video, but if you care to join us, it is not too late. Let's get into some of the themes for this month, and I think the first one I have to go to is the theme of recovery. October, as we know, was a very charged month, energetically for sure, but just looking at what has been going on in the world in recent weeks, many of us were overwhelmed, triggered. Our nervous systems got activated by what we were seeing and experiencing. And of course, there were many brothers and sisters around the world going through a great deal of turbulence, crisis, and incredibly intense events. So for you, you may have done your self-care work to kind of reset yourself as much as possible. But the message I got as I was coming to do this video is there are a lot of you that are still massively impacted by it, and really struggling to find your equilibrium in all of it, which is completely normal, by the way. But for all of us, when trauma is perpetrated on the planet in such graphic and sudden and shocking ways, it brings up inside us an almighty reaction, and it can take us back to times in our life that we have felt traumatized, but also just on a level of, are we safe? How are we going to protect ourselves and each other? And then just deep empathy for what you see certain people going through in the world if you aren't one of the people affected. And as we know, we're in this very tricky time on Earth where challenges abound. So depending on where you live, whether it's geographical, whether it's political, whether it's a battle that's going on somewhere, it's certainly a time where more of us are going through really difficult challenges. So the question for you is, how are you recovering yourself? If you resonate with the idea that you still haven't been able to shake off or center or come to a place of being back in your own groundedness, even with everything that's going on in the world, it doesn't mean feel okay about it necessarily, but you're no longer thrown off in your balance, in your decision making, in the way that you're able to show up in the world. It's really important that, especially the first couple of weeks of November, you devote some time to your thoughts, your feelings, giving yourself space to feel what you need to feel, and recognizing if your nervous system is really activated, who are the people? What are the things? What are the activities, the places, the spaces that will help you to just recover yourself and breathe again? Because the message I got as I was tuning in for this, even though I know many of you who would watch a video like this, you're already people who would be looking into how to look after yourself and regulate your nervous system at some level. But what we just witnessed and went through in October was incredibly intense. And so therefore the message I got was lots of us are still dragging parts of that with us. So see what you can do to reset your nervous system, look after your physical body, be around good, supportive people, places, things, energies, at least some of the time. And especially if, as I say that, you suddenly realize, oh my God, I'm not around any of that. I'm actually in the opposite right now. You have to prioritize giving yourself a little time each day to really come back to who you are, because what we've just been through is not necessarily over for us in terms of where we are as a world. And these are very fiery times. And so I wish I could be saying something different. I wish I could say that everything's going to be fine in a few months. And of course, none of us know exactly what the future holds, but those of us who track this kind of thing, we do know that we are in a very massive change arc on the planet. So one of the things that, my guides have spoken about is the template, or the energy template of war, and how it's playing out on the planet, and how we are going to come to a place in our consciousness where it no longer has the stranglehold it has. But right now we're in the heart of seeing the stranglehold of that, and how it gets maintained on the planet. So it's a really difficult time for anyone who's sensitive, who's in their heart, who's feeling compassion toward what they're seeing going on. And of course, for anyone involved in those areas, it's a whole other level. So as much as you can, take good care of yourself and just do a check on your own personal recovery. And if you don't feel like you are actively recovering, and it's not just this past month, I mean, we could look at the last 3 years and everything that has gone on. Just really devote some time to recovering and restoring your energy as much as you can this month. The second theme relates to some of what we've just seen in the last month. Are we feeling our feelings, or are we aiming our wounds? I've seen a lot of divisiveness online, a lot of opinions flying back and forth. The very same energy that we're dealing with on a global scale playing out in us as human beings and individuals. And I'm sure, like many of you, I went through a maelstrom of feelings about what was going on. But what I'm also seeing is people who either aren't aware of their feelings, or aren't yet adept at understanding their feelings or processing their feelings, just aiming them at other people. You feel angry about what's going on in the world. You're not very conscious that you're angry. Somebody says something you don't like, and wallop, you send the anger into them with words, with energy, or worst case scenario, with physicality. So that energy has been flying around a lot for recent years. We know this, but it is something that we have to be really mindful of. It's something we have to check in ourselves, and particularly if you understand what I'm talking about. There are many, many, many millions of us around the world who want to, as much as we can, help to be ambassadors for peace. And so we're doing our own work, we're doing our own growth, our own healing, like we all have to. But it might be that you're the person who can hold a certain level of compassion, or a certain strength for someone in your midst who you can see is wounded right now. And it's okay that they're wounded. Who wouldn't be with everything that's going on? But they just might not be as used to understanding, processing their feelings, and recognizing when they're throwing their feelings at someone else or you versus feeling their feelings. And so some of you will have been doing really important work with people in your communities around just helping them settle, helping them feel what they need to feel, hopefully giving them space for what they need to process and move through their bodies, so that it doesn't become the dis-ease of flinging it at each other, because that just puts us into the exact same scenario that we're all praying and holding a vision of moving off this planet, even if it takes decades and decades for us to get there. That's part of the work that we have to do if we believe in the principle of oneness and the idea that we are spiritual beings as much as we are human beings, and all of us are doing our best to elevate our consciousness. But perhaps your best right now might be that you're finding new strength in being able to stand there when someone is in that trigger or in that mode, and perhaps be someone who can handle it for them, or in a way that doesn't trigger them, invite them to see something a different way, or see something about themselves a different way. So that was a very strong image that I received when I got that theme, that a lot of you have been doing that. Very important to not exhaust yourself if you've been doing it a lot. And I know some of you will have been praying vigilantly for peace. And many of you have been praying for peace on the planet as a whole for decades. But I know there has been a massive increase in recent weeks because of events. So are we feeling our feelings, or are we aiming our wounds? If we feel our feelings, we normally cycle through a range of emotions. Anger will turn to grief, will turn to sadness, will turn to disorientation. It will keep moving. But if we're just sitting in anger, waiting for someone to come along that we can hurl that anger at in the hope that we'll feel better, we're not going to get very far. And all we do is spread more trauma out. So it's the balance for all of us of checking ourselves, but also some of you might be real custodians of this knowledge for other people and doing your best to help others find their way there. The third theme, also, and don't worry, I'm going to move slightly more into the energetic, but of course it's been a very heavy month on the ground. The third theme relates to the ground too. Trust and surrender. We're in a period where we are examining our trust and we are examining surrender. And surrender can be seen through two different lenses. There is the part of us that can surrender and open into things that we're ready to receive. But there's also, we can be made to surrender. We can be forced to surrender into situations or scenarios that aren't actually good for us, but that are someone else's agenda. So trust and surrender go hand in hand. And this, in the month of November, this is going to show up in a very big way, both personally and politically, the way that our governance systems are moving things along for us. That's very much under the spotlight now and very much under the microscope. And there are some good people out there trying to, from the inside of the system, bring a little more light in there. But we also know that what has been happening in recent years is the rise in consciousness has also risen the darker or lower energies in that way. So we are seeing very obvious low vibration attempts at keeping the status quo and the vibration of the planet at a low. And we're in that period now where things are really rising to the surface and more people are beginning to see the dissonance. Not everybody is though, and you can understand why they wouldn't. It's not necessarily a comfortable thing to see. But as we go through the month of November, keep your eyes peeled, particularly if you're someone who goes into despair about this, or if it worries you or greatly concerns you and you find yourself very easily in fear about all of this stuff. Keep looking for the good signs because they are there. The signs of the future are there. Yes, it's a bit of a battle right now and it doesn't look good if you just look at it on the surface, but the signs of the future are there, they're planted. There are certain things that get blocked, get stopped, get diverted. And that's part of the energy that we're going to be moving through in the next year or two until we start to see a bigger increase of future possibilities rather than a lot of what we're seeing right now, which is a desire to take us back in time to a time that wouldn't be desirable for us, but playing out in the future. So there is a bit of a war around timelines going on, and I'll talk more about that as I get near the end. But just to kind of bring it back to your personal as well, trust and surrender might be a huge personal theme for you. You might not be tracking or overly focusing on what's going on in the outside world, but in your own life, trust and surrender. Maybe you're healing trust wounds. Maybe a trust wound is being generated right now, a new thing for you that's triggering for you, and surrendering to more of who you are and who you're here to be. As we know, it's an ongoing, lifelong process. But trust and surrender can be seen through the lens of global issues and your personal life. It's a big theme, and it's usually a theme that can be a little uneasy and a little challenging. So be kind to yourself if you find yourself in it, but it is a wave that's moving through, and what it's doing is actually strengthening and fortifying us for the future. We're figuring out who we are, what's important to us, what's no longer important to us. Things that we might previously have either turned a blind eye to or not said anything about, we are going to feel compelled to move forward into. So our identities are shifting just as the global identity is shifting. That makes us uneasy in general. You know, in the human grounded self, we get a little uneasy when the programming starts to change. Even if at a soul level, we know exactly why we're going where we're going. So trust and surrender is a very edgy theme to find yourself in. So if it's not something you yourself are right in the heart of, just pay attention to that in others around you. Notice if people around you are a bit less trusting than they were, or a bit more trusting than they were, and they're a bit more willing to go with the flow where previously they weren't, or maybe you are. So it can have its brighter side, but in terms of where we are as a world right now, it's an intense issue. Okay, a brighter theme for this month is a depth plunge into deep awareness, which will lead to change. Now, it's interesting, as each month has gone on, in the last 3-4 months, there have been themes that I've been given for each month that I can see there's a sequence that has been building. So if you're someone who's been going through either a lot of transformation in the last few months, or things are very fast in your world, there's lots of change in your world, or you're really yearning for change, you're really calling in change, you're on the precipice of making some big shifts in your life, then this depth plunge into deep awareness this month is going to find you. And it's a little bit like having a sudden knowing. It's like suddenly seeing so clearly something that you knew, but you hadn't allowed yourself to yet see it. So it's a deep awareness that isn't usually accompanied by a negative shock. There might be some shock, but it's like suddenly your eyes open to what was already there and you're like, oh. And there is a part of you that will feel anything from euphoric that you have seen this, to peaceful and calm and like something that you have been trying to open in yourself for a long time is about to open, because the veils are lifting on the planet. And so many of you will go into personal deep awareness starting from this month, if you haven't already been going there. But also there is a global shift of awareness going on around where we're at as a world and what's happening. So the fact that it's a depth plunge, that was the wording I was given, tells me it's going to be deep. But for many of you who've been tracking that way, that's actually going to feel almost like a reward rather than a shock, because everything that you've been trying to get to, November is the month where the window can really open and you can really see things clearly. So, whenever I feel a theme like that coming in for myself personally, I always kind of try and hold my schedule lightly that month. I'm like, okay, I don't want to be too booked up with things that I don't want to have to move if suddenly something hits me that kind of I need to give a bit of time and space to. So by all means, carry on with your schedule, but just be aware that when that kind of thing happens, it can be hard to just carry on doing what you would kind of plan to do for the coming weeks. Now, if you're a total live in the moment person, you don't even need to worry about what I'm talking about, but just be aware. Deep awarenesses, they have a really powerful ripple effect into your life. So my favorite theme of the month is the restorative powers of joy, love, and peace. And it's my favorite theme, not necessarily because I'm being Pollyanna about what's going on the planet, but because we need it. Like, we actually need those three energies. We need joy, love, and peace to be generated, demonstrated, shared, held in our bodies, because that is its own kind of energy, energy opposition, if you like, to the other things that we might see going on the planet. So the restorative powers of joy, love, and peace. Now, I've been doing a lot of channeling in recent months where they have spoken a great deal about joy and how important it is for us. But they also say it's one of the most challenging things for us to embrace and let in, because we have been trained away from that peak energy of joy. We have been trained out of thinking that we can have sustainable joy. And joy is a little different to a quick fix of pleasure. That's like a temporary thing at the edge of joy. Joy is a very deep feeling. It shows up in gratitude, it shows up in appreciation, but it becomes active in your body. It's where your heart feels full, and it's where you feel connected to people, places, things. And so if you're feeling really lacking in joy, and like that's too hard for you to get to, where can you start with appreciation, gratitude, and where can you cultivate peace or love in your life? And the way to look at this is go, okay, how many times did I feel love this week? Love of a friend, love of what I was doing, love of the dog that I saw walking on the other side of the street, and I love dogs. Like, can you actually track how many times your body was allowed to feel love or joy? It's an interesting exercise to do, because sometimes we're feeling it more than we're consciously aware that we are. And you'll do an exercise like that and you'll go, oh, actually I felt it a lot. I just didn't really let my mind know that. It's really good to become aware of the levels of joy, love, and peace in your body, because as we become aware of them, as they become seen, they grow and they generate. They're incredibly important life-giving energies. They are like the sun coming from inside us. So first of all, you want to cultivate them for yourself. And sometimes you might only want to cultivate those energies for yourself because you're in a restoration period or a quiet period. But what happens when you generate those is they seep out into the world, they seep out into people, and they are very, very healing. So the restorative powers of joy, love, and peace are not to be underestimated at a time like this. And it can be tricky because you might have survivor's guilt opposing you generating those three energies. But for this world and us as a humanity to keep going, we need to keep those alive. It's really important, especially at a time where we are not being encouraged or invited or allowed to celebrate and feel those things. And actually, if you look at our programming and our training, so few of us have ever been invited into those things in a very rounded, well-educated way. So that's part of the restoration of our soul on earth. Those of us that are uncovering our own joy, our own love, our own peace, so that we can share it with others. And likewise, those people who share it with us on the day that we most need it. It's one of the best flames to pass from body to body. The next theme is, what timeline are you in right now? Now this one struck me when I got these words. The future beckons. So what I got shown was a lot of us, and I know I'm not there all the time. There are some of you who are there all the time, I feel, right now, are in the future timelines in order to bring a little more light to the present. The present needs light right now. And the present needs a lot of light, a lot of love, a lot of healing. So there are a whole group of people on the planet, and I see a fair number of you who watch videos like this, who've kind of gone ahead a few years energetically and as a soul, and you're kind of living there waiting for everyone else to catch up. But also, because you've gone there in your consciousness and your awareness, you are seeding that energy now to kind of help people over the bridge. We know that astrologically this has shown up, but we also know that many different prophecies have shown up around this period of time. I know my guides talked about 2017 to 2024 being a huge arc of change on the planet. So what timeline are you in right now? Are you thinking about the future? And actually, if you aren't thinking about the future, and if you're only in the present or the past, or you're a bit haunted about the idea of the future, it's going to be really important for you to start to generate positive vision, positive focus, positive... I wanted to censor that word, but I was told not to. Positive expectation for the future. Expectation felt a little bold to me, but they were like, no, we need to generate positive expectation. So some of you will reject that, and that's fine, but there'll be some of you who'll go, no, I want to generate positive expectation for the future. Thank you for your service. We need you doing that. So just start thinking about your future and the future of the world as a more transformed place, space, and way of living. It doesn't necessarily mean we still don't have to go through this rocky period, but don't let this rocky period tell us the story of what our future is. It's really important for those of us who can feel a rising consciousness that's not only here right now, but that there's a different future ahead for us that's possible, to see it, to feel it, and to bring a seed of that energy here to now. It's very important, and more important than we may even realize. So, what timeline are you in right now? The future beckons. If you feel stuck in the past, stuck in the present, see if you can do some visioning. Sit down and write a dream of what you would like to personally experience in 2024, what you would like to see positively impact the world or people that you know in 2024. Which leads me to the last but one theme, which is interesting. 2023 energy is beginning to close out in November. 2023 energy is beginning to close out in November. Now, my logical mind says, well, we still have December. But they're like, no, 2023 is going to be pretty wrapped up by the end of November. And in December, you're entering the energy of 2024 early. Now, how you interpret that is going to depend on your belief system and what you think about linear time. But why this is important to understand, if you resonate with what I just said, is you're going to be doing a little bit of a wrap up and a little bit of a release of everything you've been through this year. So in the month of November, you will start to shed, transform. And also, it's interesting, in last month, the theme was reckoning and rebirth. So that energy began a reckoning of everything in your life and a rebirth. And what's about to happen is, in the month of November, you're about to start to come out the birth canal, ready for the next year. So it's interesting because 2023 energy, you could argue, is going to go all the way to the end of December, but they're saying, no, there will be a shift that starts early in December that will move us into the energy of next year, which apparently is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. They say it's actually good that things are moving forward a little faster toward the end of the year, but it will encourage us to drop things we no longer need to feel. So it's going to be an intense month for sure. And the final theme is 2024 is a year of strength. So I will be doing my free annual broadcast on December 21st, where I will go through the energetic themes of 2024 as a whole. I'll share the details of that next month so that you can figure out where to join that if you want to. But 2024 is a year of strength. So, of course, there will be many other energies in 2024, and depending on who you are personally, you'll have your own personal impacts. But it's going to be a year of human strength at a new level of soul that we haven't necessarily seen, that we may have not embodied yet. So in a way, the fact that we are getting ready for a strong year does tend to imply that there might be major things going on for some of you in this last month or so. Especially in the month of November, it feels like this will be the final month for any big moves that you want to make in terms of 2023. But as I say that, I know so many of us who have made major moves in this year already. So I'm going to bring you back to the first theme, recovery. Recovery. I know for me, even though I've been generating a lot of energy in the last 6 weeks, I also know that because of that and because of the way the world has been, I have really had to focus on my recovery, making sure that I'm resetting myself, making sure I'm looking after myself. So I invite you to do the same. At the end of the day, only we really know how we're doing and what we need. And if we're very out of touch with that, it's great to have a wonderful friend or someone who supports you, point it out to you. That's great. But we're the ones that can make the changes that we need to make. So if you are struggling right now, ask yourself, what could improve my life on a spiritual, mental, emotional, or physical level? Sometimes it's as simple as increasing the amount you're exercising to get your energy moving. Sometimes it's environmental, and you have to finally admit to yourself, yeah, I shouldn't be living in this apartment that I've been not enjoying living in for 3 years. When am I going to make the move? And how can I make the move if it's really bringing me down? So there are always things we can do, but the first thing is admitting we need to recover and giving it some time, giving it some focus, giving it some awareness. Lastly, I just want to say, look after your heart. It's a really tender time, and times like this do really bring our hearts up to the forefront. And sometimes that can lead to incredibly beautiful surrendered heart openings. And sometimes our hearts want to shut down because they don't know if they can trust the world that we live in. So it was interesting. As I sat down to do this month's energy update themes, I was struck by the emotional nature of so many of them. And I can feel it as I'm transmitting this to you. There is a level of high emotion that I am feeling that tells me where we're at. And so the most important thing to know is take your recovery into your own hands. Surround yourself with good people, places, and things. These are really times to gather your lighthouses, especially if you are someone who's a lighthouse for people in your life. It's got to flow both ways. We have to have the give and receive. So just take good care of yourself. And if you want to use November wisely, see it as a time of at least semi-hibernation. If you're feeling, a little like, oh God, I don't like what Lee's saying and the world feels a bit alarming in November, okay, great. Let's do something about that. Notice how you're feeling and decide for yourself, I am going to the best of my ability, not overstimulate my nervous system this month. The world will probably invite me to all kinds of things that will do that. So what are my actions and behaviors that aren't helping? And what are the actions and behaviors I can create that let me heal, let me breathe, let me feel safe to be here and ready to be here? So, thank you for tuning in, everybody. I wish you lots of love for the month of November. And for those of you who are already joining me for the Initiation Channeled Mystery School, in a moment we'll play you an excerpt from that so you can get a feel for it in case you want to decide if you want to join us. But for those of you who are already with us, thank you for being there. This is my favorite thing to do every year because it's a very powerful season to do something like this in. And if you want to check it out, please do. It runs through the end of November, in fact, the middle of November, but as usual, any live broadcasts are all archived as replays, so you can watch it at your own leisure and you have lifetime access to all the material. We are releasing this month, perhaps in a more timely way than I realized when we set the release date, our Medicine Mantra album. You can actually see it just over my shoulder here. It may be out of focus, but it's a collection of 4 9+ minute mantras. All mantras I have been given through the channeling over the years that I created melodies for, gave voice to, gave multiple voices to, and then Devor Bozique, my music partner, he arranged them and then we blended them together in the way we mixed them so that they could be a high frequency tool for you, for your home. You can play them in a room and that will help clear the energy of the room. You can sing along and let the words and the melodies move through you. So we've steadily been releasing the singles and there are a few more to come out, but the album will release on the, let me think, I think it's November the 23rd. I think I've got the date right. Yes, I hope so. It's a Friday. So it's either the 23rd or a day or before or after, but do check that out and you can already see the beautiful videos created by Rebecca Hall for those on my Lee Harris Music YouTube channel right now. And last but not least, The Portal is my monthly members community. And in fact, the medicine mantras were created for my Portal members and given to them along with some teaching MP3s that accompanied them back in spring. So the Portal is, in a way, the community I serve first and deepest every month because we are a smaller community than these kinds of bigger videos. And we've been going for over 10 years. And my goal with the Portal is to create a safe and supportive and diverse and varied space where you as a sensitive, as a consciousness seeker, as someone developing your intuition, your awareness, perhaps your own channeling, can come every month to be supported, be inspired, and be held. So I teach in there every month live for 90 minutes, and it's always an honor to do. So if you feel like checking out the Portal, you can do that following the links below this video. We'd love to welcome you, and you can try it for a month and see if it feels resonant for you. And now we'll play you a clip from Initiation. But again, guys, I just want to say, please look after yourselves. These are intense times. So if you need to, really take the recovery word as a focus for this month. Initiation is my channeled mystery school, which takes place once a year. I was given a very clear directive by my guides in late 2021 to bring forth a mystery school where they could deliver a message and a transmission once a week for approximately 75 to 90 minutes each week. And it was incredible, very powerful, very deep. And it also gave me an opportunity to support the process by delivering what I call a calibration video, where I help you understand and explore what might be coming up for you after each transmission from the Z's. It's a mystery school because even I don't know what the topics will be, sometimes even until the channel is delivered. But part of the reason for this is twofold. Number one, it allows the Z's to transmit exactly what is required for where we are right now and the year to come. And number two, it leaves our minds out of it, including me. We aren't allowed to fully understand what it is that we're walking into, but I can say with confidence that from the last 2 years, the teachings and the depth of the transmissions not only impacted our students and those of us in the experience at the time, but became guideposts for my teaching in the following months. I would hear and absorb things that they were delivering that made their way into the work in the year to come. Initiation starts October 25th and runs through November 15th and contains 4 weekly live 90-minute broadcasts, replays available if you can't be there live, calibration videos from me in between to help you ground and integrate the material, a welcome video from myself and my guides the Z's, the music album Medicine Mantras, which will not be publicly released until the end of November, and a community forum and several support materials including worksheets and a self-care guide. Initiation is a magical, shamanic, and transformative journey, and we can't wait to get started with year 3 and those of you who choose to join us. Check out the link below for more details and information.